This is the Clean Energy Show with Brian Stockton and James Whittingham.
Hello and welcome to episode 58 of the Clean Energy Show. I'm Brian Stockton.
And I'm James Whittingham. Welcome to a weekly discussion of the latest developments in clean energy and transportation. This week, Brian, as we speak, the United States President is proposing a huge infrastructure plan that is heavy on the green. We'll have details on that. And the Canadian Supreme Court approved the carbon tax, which affects you and I, where we live here in Canada. And it is a big political issue here. What did you think of that?
Yeah, that was big news here in Canada. Some of the provinces here in Canada were fighting the federal government that was trying to impose minimum standards for putting a price on carbon. And some of the provinces, including our own, objected to that. And millions of dollars later, and the federal government's right to propose and implement federal taxes has been affirmed, which seems kind of obvious.
You don't know the price tag, eh? Like, they spent a lot of money fighting this. Saskatchewan, Alberta, and Ontario. Ontario put stickers on gas pumps to just to tell people that there was a carbon tax on it, and he was against it. This is before COVID, when petty things were more important.
Yeah, I don't know the final price tag of it all, but
it's in the millions, Brian. It's in the millions. It's unpleasant.
A huge waste of time and money.
They could have spent that millions on a solar farm or something like that, but no, they had to fight it. It was a 6-3 decision. People are still saying it's not. They're worried about federal powers of on the jurisdictions of the provinces, just like they are in the states with state powers. But were you surprised? Did you have confidence in this decision?
Yeah, I was pretty sure it was going to pass. I mean, 6-3 is still a split decision, so obviously there are some arguments on the other side of the issue. But yeah, the federal government has the right to impose federal taxes. It just seems kind of obvious.
So I guess the argument was that it affects us all. The environment, the climate change doesn't just affect one province at a time. It affects the country as a nation, and they're going ahead with that. So I found it interesting that our premier here in Saskatchewan wants to adopt the New Brunswick plan. One of the provinces had you can make up your own plan or have one imposed, and the one that they did is sort of a little bit confusing and wishy-washy. It's not one of the better programs, at least according to critics. So what he wants to do is rebate your gas tax right at the pump. You go in and you get it rebated right back to you, which defeats the purpose. So he's trying on purpose to defeat the carbon tax's purpose, which proves he doesn't give an SHIT about the environment and that he's a jackass. And also, where we are, the Regina is the COVID capital of Canada right now. Perhaps the COVID capital of North America. We're teeming with COVID. I probably have it on my hands right now. The variant, 90% variant, Brian.
There's a bit of a leadership problem here in our province.
And we were getting so close to be having a vaccine. So close. They ran out of AstraZeneca. And then they decided that no, people 6 months older than me and older are the only people who can get it. I missed it by 6 months.
Oh, no.
I would take that blood clot, happily. I would take the blood. People say blood clots are bad. Yes, but not in, I think it's more for men. Less for men.
I love it. Personally, I love a good blood clot. It makes me feel alive.
Well, it does. If your leg starts hurting very badly and you start screaming, I mean, what wakes you up more than that? I just want my vaccine, Brian. I've got kids coming and going. I have a wife coming and going. It's bad. It's bad. It's bad for me. I want my vaccine, and I'll take.
You're going to have to maybe. Can you just hole yourself up there in your podcast studio and just cut yourself off from the rest of your family?
I'm honestly thinking about it.
James, your podcasting audience, this is your new family.
Well, I need the support of them more often. It'll have to be a continuous live podcast where I podcast everything 24 hours a day, or at least when I'm away.
Well, until you get vaccinated. Yeah, you should. Yeah, I'm going to keep broadcasting until I'm vaccinated.
Well, the kids are learning from home this week, and then there's the Easter break for 10 days. And then they may or may not go back to school. My wife may or may not, will probably go back to work. And I was hoping to have had the vaccine by then. It would have probably worked out that way, but now it's not. So we'll see. I I maybe 3 weeks from now I could get the vaccine, then you got to wait another 3 weeks to have it effective. But I don't want to be that guy. The finish line's so close, Brian. I don't want to be that guy who dies
We're so close.
just before getting the vaccine.
So close.
Because that would be tragic, and I would be very pissed off. I would go to my grave angry. So how are you? You've got your e-bike now for a couple of weeks. You're folding e-bike. My kids, I convinced them to go take my e-bike for a ride during a nice warm day, summery day we had. Then there was a blizzard the next day, by the way. But I convinced, and they both came back with smiles on their faces. Like they have COVID gloom, Brian. COVID gloom. It's doom and gloom. It's kind of, they're kind of down by the whole world, but they came back with smiles on their face. So that's a big endorsement for e-bikes.
Yeah, well, it's been a long winter with winter and COVID. But yeah, really my update is we had one nice day and the rest of my family took the e-bike out because they all wanted to try it. So I didn't actually ride it that day. And then, yeah, we had a horrible blizzard the next day, like really bad. There's still snow out there. So I should hopefully have ridden the bike by next week.
Well, tell me, what did your family think? Were they impressed?
Yeah, everybody likes it. It's. I mean, what's not to like? It's fun. It goes on its own. It's amazing.
Now, have they all sort of stopped riding bikes in their old age? The kids are getting old now, adult age. Are they riding bikes less, and this sort of gave them incentive to maybe get on it again? Or how do you feel about that?
Well, maybe, but they have already been on their own conventional bicycles this summer. So yeah, they're still biking.
Is any of them saying, Brian, I want a e-bike? Myself, you can go get me one with your Tesla stock. This is pretty cool.
No, I haven't heard that. But, they're young and strong and, they have muscles that they can use.
Yeah, they don't need an e-bike. It's just for us people who are at the end of the line. Yeah, as the sun sets on our miserable lives, we need the e-bike to get us around, to give us a little bit of joy in our twilight years. I'm looking forward to the summer, having a vaccine, riding my e-bike gleefully, my fat-ass body gliding across the streets of Regina in the summer, in warm air.
I don't know. Because our COVID numbers here in our city are so high, it is going to be a struggle to knock those numbers down, even with the vaccines starting to flow. But I'm cautiously optimistic, but I feel like it's going to take probably till the end of the summer before there's decent low numbers.
Yeah. Oh, well. I mean, it's summer I did pretty well with last year because you can go outside. I find you're just going outside and not freezing to death and pleasant weather is enough to perk a person up and not feel too restrained. So if we have to go into the next fall as Canadians into another dark winter and everything is kind of more normal and less restricted, that's fine with me. So the President Biden has, as we speak, almost, I think within 45 minutes of the recording of this podcast on Wednesday afternoon, he is going to be in Pennsylvania talking about a giant new infrastructure plan, the biggest one in many, many decades. Like U.S. infrastructure has been neglected. It has in Canada as well. They just, nobody wants to raise taxes to pay for bridges. Nobody wants to do that. But he is, to my surprise, let me just ask you this. He seems more legit, more Bernie, more green in his policies than I might have given credit for at the time of the election. Like, I think he's more legit than I even expected, by far, actually.
No, I agree. There's been lots of good signs that, things are moving in the right direction. Of course, they have to actually, put the pedal to the metal and actually do this. But I agree. It's all very hopeful. It seems like a good time to spend a bunch of money on infrastructure. As you say, it's all been neglected for decades. And to jumpstart everything kind of post-COVID, it makes a lot of sense.
So they will be spending trillions of dollars. What is it, $2 trillion? Is it $1 trillion? It's a great deal of money. We haven't got the exact details yet, but it's going to use the federal government's incredible purchasing power to drive clean energy deployment across the market by purchasing 24/7 clean energy power for buildings. So that's pretty significant. There's a lot of federal buildings in the States that will only be using clean power. There's a $174 billion investment in vehicle electrification, including the installation of 500,000 new electric vehicle charging stations. Now, that's not sites. That's individual stations, I imagine, with 500,000 of them. So that'll help increase the adoption of electric vehicles, especially in places where maybe they're neglected or there's a smaller use case. So Tesla isn't jumping on, some vacant highway in Wyoming that maybe needs one. So they're talking about buyer rebates and incentives for electric vehicles and swapping out 50,000 diesel-powered transit buses and electrifying 20% of school buses, as well as the entire federal vehicle fleet, which remains to be seen because the post office kind of screwed the chicken on that one. That's an expression I just made up. You can use that if you like.
Nice.
In addition, it would be upgrading the power grid and making it more resilient. So I hate that in a way because, the power grid is, they're private companies in the States. I don't think there's any crown utilities, any, state-owned utilities in the States. So it's all a for-profit deal. And if you are converting to green energy and you need to upgrade your grid, maybe you should pay for that because it's going to be cheap power that you're putting into the grid. Maybe, I don't know, maybe a lot of this is going to be researched too. There's all kinds of different ways they're going to do it. But here's the kicker. One thing that the earliest bit of information that came out about this is that they want to decrease the cost of solar by 60% by 2030. That's already pretty cheap. It's going to get a lot cheaper. That's So they were talking about 30%. Some people were saying 30% in the next 9 years is already kind of competitive, especially in the States because of their climate. 60%. So I think that's something like 2 cents a kilowatt hour or something like that. And it's something that no one predicted even 3 years ago that it would even get that far anytime.
Yeah, so this is, I guess, research spending that they're talking about to help drive the cost down. There was an article on Clean Technica that was sort of a counterpoint to that. They sort of thought that it's not necessarily research that we need right now. It's really more manufacturing, right? Like it's just scaling up production. And the more you can scale up production of solar cells, that's what's going to make them cheaper. So I guess, any spending is good on that, but it's really just mass production, I think, that's really needed to drive the cost down.
So, yeah, they're going to fix highways, rebuild bridges, upgrade ports, airports, and transit systems. They're throwing money everywhere. Let me ask you this. What would you do with, $1 trillion if you were the American president? Here's what I'm thinking. I'm thinking we need some massive battery investment just in factories and mining and in the whole battery ecosystem and make it American.
Yeah, well, you bring up a good point there when you say that, these power utilities are typically private companies in the U.S. and, battery production, solar production, they're all kind of private companies. There is, an argument to be made that, a company like Tesla really doesn't need any subsidies at this point. There's so much money to be made in this kind of thing. But I guess, yeah, it's you really want to shore up your entire country's ability to get with the program. So it's like, I guess, encouragement funding in certain directions to make sure there's enough mining, to make sure there's enough battery production. So, you don't want to dictate everything because it's a big gold rush and there's lots of money to be made. So in answer to your question, no, I don't know how to spend $1 trillion.
I think I could. Mostly on electronics and home theater equipment and cars. High-speed broadband to all Americans. Yeah, that's an issue down there too, right? Even in populated areas.
Also in Canada too, yeah, where we have definitely sparsely populated areas. I think, yeah, maybe it's worse in the U.S. They have kind of a lot of virtual monopolies down there for broadband internet. So if one company is serving one small community, nobody else bothers to go in to compete. So I know that's a bit of a mess that could use addressing somehow. But again, I don't know how to spend $1 trillion.
They're also going to build, preserve, and retrofit more than 2 million homes and commercial buildings, modernize the nation's schools and childcare facilities, upgrade veteran hospitals and federal buildings. So this is sort of a retrofit idea, energy efficiency, which is something that they say is part of the decarbonizing mix. Is we were going through that we had a program in Canada, a retrofit program that you and I think both took advantage of. I got a high efficiency furnace that made a big difference with that program, and they could also, we're supposed to be getting something like that here too, like insulation upgrades and things like that, but we haven't heard anything because of the pandemic.
Yeah, no, there is some type of a home retrofit tax credit you can get right now. If you I don't think it's specifically energy related, but you can get a bit of a tax credit for home renovations right now. But yeah, if you think about just efficiency is a huge one, and imagine all the buildings out there, you were talking about, daycares, hospitals, whatever, there's probably some of them still running on old incandescent light bulbs, right? So, if you just switched out all the light bulbs for LEDs, like it's a crazy amount of power you would save.
If Trump was in power, he was going to bring back the incandescent bulb.
Yeah, right.
Which makes no sense because the LEDs are perfectly fine. And they're cheap. It's not even an expense anymore. And they last and they don't get hot, and which is the big thing in the States. I think it's more important that the light bulbs don't add heat to your house in a climate that is more warm than it is cold. So yeah, the U.S., are talking about supplying manufacturing, supply chains and research and development, and training Americans for future jobs such as clean energy jobs. Yeah, but they also want a lot of union jobs involved in that. They want some railways and transportation in there, rebuild bridges, upgrade ports, airports, and transit systems. So I think they're throwing around money pretty, I don't know. It seems like people are saying like 60% of it is green related, that you could put that in the green column. And some of the other ones are kind of important to green too. So it is very strong with the green aspect of it, but it's no Green Deal, is it?
It's something.
So yeah, modernizing public transit, investing in rail service, and all good things. Some electric vehicles. Do you think Tesla's going to end up with an electric vehicle? They're talking about electric vehicle rebates for just American-made electric vehicles. I know Volkswagen is making some of their cars in the States, but not everybody is, right?
Yeah, well, Tesla stock is finally up for the last couple of days, and it could be, rumors of this tax credit. Again, they don't really need it. I mean, I think a price on dumping carbon into the air is the thing that kind of makes more sense. But it's, good news for anybody making electric vehicles. Yeah, I'm not convinced that's the best way to address the issue, but it is possibly good news for anybody making electric vehicles in the U.S.
Wednesday afternoon, just before close, Tesla stock is up $32.31, or 5% on the day, which ain't bad, Mr. Tesla stock holder. People are still pushing me to accept Bitcoin and get into Tesla stocks, getting messages on Twitter, because you and I always talk about how rich you are. People actually feel sorry for me. So they say, James, you can accept Bitcoin for the show. I'll tell you how to set it up. And, you now is the time to get into Tesla stock. Don't miss out, James,
Don't miss out.
There has been some pushback on the ARK Invest 2025 scenario for Tesla that some people are saying is not very realistic. However, Tesla continues to surprise all the time. So we'll see how that goes. And I hope to see lots, this is probably good. Like, how do you think the infrastructure plan is going to accelerate the clean transition? Do you think that it's going to have an effect? I think it will.
Yeah, well, it's really signifying a new direction for the country. And so, like, a lot of stock market movement is really just driven by, the tides of who's in power. If one person's in power, the money sort of flows in one direction, and if another person's in power, it flows in another direction. So it's very clear signals of where the country is heading, and that usually means the stock market will follow.
Yes, Brian. So you wanted to talk about Bombardier and Taiga.
We had announcements this week from each, and these are two Canadian companies that build electric snowmobiles as well as personal watercraft, three-wheeled kind of motorcycles and stuff. And they both had major announcement this week. So Taiga is going to build an EV manufacturing facility in Shawinigan, Quebec. And I just like to say Shawinigan.
Home of Jean Chrétien, former Prime Minister.
Home of Jean Chrétien, former Prime Minister. And so they're going to make electric snowmobiles, personal watercraft, all this kind of stuff. They're going to start production in 2022. So they're hoping to increase the production capacity to 80,000 units by 2025. And then Bombardier, which is also known as BRP. They're the makers of Ski-Doo and Sea-Doo, which same thing, snowmobiles and personal watercraft. And they're putting $300 million to electrify their product line. Coming to market until 2023. It's a bit late, but they are spending a lot of money. And again, this is a Canadian company that's going to be making these kind of vehicles electric and here in Canada.
Our federal government in Canada is trying to push EV manufacturing. But every country in the world is too. Everyone is. France, England, you name it, the United States, everyone. Can we do it, though?
No, and I've heard a lot of talk lately about heavy industry kind of things. We've talked about this before, where things like concrete and steel, they can take a lot of fossil fuels to create that stuff. But it's actually an advantage we have here in Canada because most of our grid is already pretty clean. So there are opportunities in Canada for things like steel manufacturing and, concrete that are potentially lower carbon than if those same things are made in other countries. We have a bit of a head start because our grid is already quite clean.
It's going to be a very exciting decade that we will be here to cover on the Clean Energy Show. And we do have some email coming up. But first, it's this.
What do you think?
It's What Do You Think, where I tuck away some things all week long to ask Brian what he thinks. Brian, the Kia has unveiled the EV6 electric crossover. It is kind of like, I'm quoting here, the Ioniq 5, but in a beautifully different package. Your thoughts?
Yeah, so they are similar cars. Hyundai with the Ioniq 5, and now Kia has officially announced the EV6. Same platform, same kind of size, same kind of performance. The Kia stats maybe seemed even better, almost too good to be true. They're 0 to 60 in 3.5 seconds, I think, for one of the models. So Kia and Hyundai, they're bringing the heat. These look like really, really good cars. There'll be a couple of different battery packs, so quite long range on the bigger pack. But there was sort of some bad news to balance that out this week with Hyundai, which is that they announced that they can't make enough of the electric motors that they need for the Ioniq 5. So they've downgraded their production target numbers for the Ioniq 5 because they can't make the electric motors fast enough. So that was disappointing.
Brian, that boils my green blood.
You're a Vulcan?
I don't like that. They're a major car company. They know how to source things. They know how to get things. What are they doing?
You'd think so. Yeah.
Is it bullshit?
I mean, I think it's going to be an endless stream of these kind of announcements for the next 10 years because, the entire automotive system has to be switched over, and it's going to be really, really difficult to keep up the pace, I think.
And some automotive manufacturers, not EV per se necessarily, but are having a microchip shortage because of COVID hiccups that were in the system.
Once COVID hit, everybody kind of lowered their orders for the microchips, and then they realized, oh, wait, we need these after all. Plus, other issues as well. But, if you think about all the parts that go into a car, it's kind of insane. And, you've got to keep all of them adequately sourced. I mean, I'm glad that's not my job.
Now, there's more parts that go into a combustion vehicle than there are into electric vehicle, but it's pretty basic stuff. Maybe they should be making their own drive units. I don't know. What do you think?
Yeah, I don't have the story in front of me. I'm not. Hyundai might even be making their own electric motors, but
They're just too lazy. It's just we'll
they're just
do
too
it for
lazy.
a couple of hours a week, but we're getting exhausted.
Yeah,
I don't like excuses, Brian. I don't like excuses. So we're talking 510 kilometers on the the BS cycle, the WLTP cycle, which means nothing. And everybody likes to use
a bit generous.
So maybe 250 miles of range on a single charge, which is, darn it, I can't remember what that is. 375, 380. Alexa, what is 250 miles in kilometers? Yeah, it's 400. It's about yours. Your car, your long-range standard range plus 103. I don't know. I like the car. I don't like the excuses. They're doing a good job making these vehicles. They're compelling. They are, but they're not making them. It makes me mad. It's teasing me.
No,
they're teasing me.
I worry that, again, we'll get them even later. So I suspect that some of these will start to come out toward the end of the year in Europe, probably first. They'll come here later, and then they'll come to our neck of the woods even later than that. So we're probably a very long way from getting those cars here where we live.
Okay, the other thing I wanted to ask you about, Brian, is Elon Musk deleted a tweet alluding to Tesla becoming the world's biggest car company in just a few months. Was he on something? What do you think about that?
Yeah, it's a long story, but somebody was asking him about the value of Tesla, if they could be the world's biggest company. Elon said there's a greater than 0% chance, which doesn't really mean anything. But then another tweet he wrote that was deleted said something like, it could happen in a few months. So probably he was referring to the full self-driving going into wide release, but he deleted the tweet, hasn't really said anything else about it. So that just leaves all of us to speculate and give free publicity to Tesla for just whatever they delete or tweet or delete.
Well, deleting a tweet when you're Elon Musk is a pretty big deal. This has been another...
And all of us nerds end up talking
another edition of What Do You Think?
What do you think?
Brian, I have some feedback for you. I'm delighted.
Great.
Remember when we...
As long as it's good news only.
I'm dying to read negative feedback on the show. If you hate us, if you're listening to us right now, drop us an email, cleanenergyshow@gmail.com.
I have some negative feedback for the show.
Okay.
I want to apologize for the poor sound quality of my microphone last week. I don't know what happened. It's this mixer, I think. I don't know. It just didn't sound very good. I apologize. Hopefully it sounds better this week. I've got a different setup. So that's my negative feedback. My microphone didn't sound good last week.
Brian, you sound like Hyundai Kia. Making BS excuses. Come on, man. Get it together. So yeah, we were talking about heating. You're talking about, hypothetically, what if you built a new cabin at the lake one day, and how might you heat it effectively? We were talking about wood. Yeah. So I have a message here, an email from Paul. It says, "Hi guys," a pleasant start to an email. "So you are wondering about wood stoves for the cottage. We just traded in our wood stove for one with a catalytic combustor, and it's great. That is a catalytic combustor. You start the fire, load up the firebox, and once it gets up to speed, you flip on the catalytic combustor. The off gases then get burned off in the combustor, making it very clean to burn. It burns for a very long time and uses much less wood. If I start the fire at 6 p.m., it's generally still going when we get up in the morning. However, if you're going to put up a new cottage, then the best solution is a tulikivi. 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 A tulikivi. Sure. Should have practiced that before the show. It's from Finland. Thank you, Finland, for talking funny. It consists of a firebox and a soapstone mass with channels through it. It burns at a very high temperature, burning all the gases. So I guess it burns at a high temperature, and that's how it achieves burning all the gases. As it goes through the channels, it heats the soapstone, which absorbs the heat and slowly radiates it. So it's kind of like a battery in that sense. It's extremely efficient, and if you get up on the roof and put your hand on top of the chimney, there's no heat coming out. Cheers, Paul from Ontario, Canada. What do you think about that?
Wow, yeah, I hadn't heard about that. This is an area of technology I've always been kind of curious about. I remember reading a statistic one time about old-fashioned fireplaces, of which, we have one. We actually have two here in our house, one in the basement, one upstairs. And it's just an old-fashioned fireplace from the 60s. And those are apparently about 10% efficient in terms of giving heat to your house. 90% of the heat goes out the chimney. So if the chimney is cool coming out of your house, that is an excellent sign.
Paul, thank you very much for that email. cleanenergyshow@gmail.com. Clean Energy Pod on Twitter, where you can tweet at us or give us a direct message. And speakpipe.com/cleanenergyshow to leave us a voicemail message. We always like to hear from you. Brian, how's your beer drinking going this week?
Excellent. Which gives me a chance to talk about our sponsor again this week as I wait for the sound effects to load and play. So yes, we are once again sponsored by District Brewing. Thanks so much to them for sponsoring the Clean Energy Show. They have a delivery service here in our home province in Regina and Saskatoon, bruiser.com, or the app, the Bruiser app in your favorite app store. And if you order some beer and get it delivered, and they have more than just beer and they have more than just stuff from District Brewing, please use the promo code in the little text box that you have there for delivery instructions. And the promo code is environment. So if you put that in there, they'll know that you listened to us on the podcast and ordered some beer because of it. So thanks so much to District Brewing for sponsoring the podcast.
Do you get a special something for doing that, though, as a customer?
Yeah, that's what the promo code is for. You'll get some kind of free gift, which we have not determined.
We speculated that it might be a Brian Stockton bobblehead, if those exist. That could be. But that's just a speculation. We're not sure. So I think you need to go try it. And well, thanks to District Brewing. Brian, Rivian has talked about their warranty in the sense that they've quietly revealed it on their website without, any trumpets or anything. And it's very impressive, and I thought we should chat about it this week. The comprehensive warranty lasts 5 years or up to 60,000 miles, which is about close to 100,000 kilometers. It covers all parts, labor, and any faults that arise from defects or workmanship with the vehicle's regular operations. To compare, on my Toyota, that sort of comprehensive warranty lasts 3 years.
Yeah, that's really good. I've had a 5-year warranty before with a Hyundai car, but warranties are tricky. They don't always cover exactly everything, but that language sounds encouraging.
And also on my Prii, they've had an 8-year warranty with about 20,000 kilometers per year for the powertrain and battery and all that stuff. So just to make you at ease with that aspect of the car. With the Rivian, it also lasts 8 years or up to 175,000 miles, which is quite good. Alexa, what is 175,000 miles in kilometers? 282,000 kilometers. That's how long the battery warranty is. And that's most people don't, own their cars that long, if I'm not mistaken. That's about where they get rid of them at most.
No, and I don't actually know what the warranty is for the Tesla that I bought, so I just Googled it just now, and the basic Tesla vehicle warranty, 4 years, 80,000 kilometers, and a longer warranty for the restraint system. The battery and drive unit in a Model 3 is 8 years or 160,000 kilometers.
So that's kind of standard for electrified vehicles, whether they're hybrid or battery electric. So they will replace the battery if it drops below 70% capacity in that 8 years. So you're looking at, you're not going to have a failed battery if it drops below 70%. So buy a battery that's bigger than you need. And I don't know. We'll see how the Rivian batteries are. I'm not sure the Tesla batteries would hit 70% after that long. What do you think about that?
Yeah, I'm thinking that should be easy to hit. Should be better than that after 8 years, I think.
Now, a lot of cars, they'll have a battery depreciation curve on them that sort of slows down. It's fastest actually in the first and second and third year. But by the time you get to 5, that curve is flattening out quite a bit. And I think that's the case with my car. I think most of the degradation happened, and I do have a bad battery for that, but it's also flattened out now and seems to be holding its own for the last couple of years. And we'll see how that goes. So, a lot of cars, we don't have a lot of data on that for older cars.
Yeah, and I'm not exactly sure how to measure it in my Tesla. I suspect I've lost about 5% already of the battery, but yeah, the idea is you often lose that 5% in the first year or something, and then it stabilizes. So hopefully that's the
So
case.
it's one more reason to buy a bigger battery than you need. I know people are always saying in reviews and write-ups, people only commute X number of kilometers or miles per day, and you don't need a battery that's that big. But there's lots of reasons to have a larger than life battery. I'm going to go through a couple of them right now. One would be if you live in Canada, or if you live in the northern states or the cold climate, or northern Europe, or China. If you're listening in China, and I don't think you are, because they probably won't let you. I have some beefs with China that I've voiced publicly, and they probably have a person assigned to me right now. But that's one more listener we have, Brian.
You're probably banned since that film we made played in China at the Beijing Film Festival.
We don't want to talk about that because yeah, they might arrest us. They might come here and arrest us. So I just if you're in a warm climate or cold climate rather, you're going to lose half of your range, up to half your range in extremely cold weather. So you want a bigger battery than you need for that reason. And then you need one for a little bit of degradation. I wouldn't worry about 10% over the course of you owning the car is kind of what you. But then the other thing is when you're charging it, if you have a bigger battery than you need, you can charge it faster, because if you only charge up to say 70% instead of 80% because you have such a big battery, that charging speed will be faster. Generally speaking, below around 50, 40, 30%, that's where it goes the fastest, depending on the vehicle. So you can charge up faster and get more kilometers if you have a bigger battery. So I'm always saying get a big battery if you can.
Well, I have a slight counterpoint to that, and I would prefer to have a larger battery, but it would have cost me a lot more money. But the nice thing about the one that I got is the smaller the battery, the more efficient it is typically. So, my model, the Standard Range Plus, is the most efficient of all the Tesla models. It doesn't have the biggest range or the biggest battery, but that helps it be more efficient because the overall weight of the vehicle is down. So your charging can go quite fast because you need less juice to go the same distance. So, a smaller battery charges up quicker, if you understand what I'm talking about.
No, I don't. 175,000 miles is the drivetrain warranty, which is almost an exact mirror of the battery warranty for the Rivian. So you can buy a Rivian with confidence, and they will be available when? June? United States people are they're starting to order them now, right?
Yeah, I don't know the latest, but yeah, this summer maybe.
All right, it's time for the lightning round.
The Clean Energy Show lightning round.
Okay, Brian, this is where we go and clean up the headlines. Anything we've left out, we go through them quickly. Elon tweeted out that the semi battery pack or the semi manufacturing was constricted due to battery constraints. Did you hear that one?
Yeah. So again, this is, Elon tweets out a couple of sentences and then everybody pours over the tweets and talks about them endlessly, including us. But yeah, he was just trying to, sounds like, downplay expectations. They still expect to be battery constrained for the near future. So I think toward the end of the year, we'll just get a trickle of semis and maybe just a trickle of the Cybertruck. But, they're still trying to ramp up battery production. And I feel like that's probably the biggest challenge that Tesla has right now, because they haven't even typically in the past made their own battery cells. They were sourcing battery cells from Panasonic and LG and CATL. But as they revealed at Battery Day, they're attempting to become their own cell manufacturer, but they're really starting from scratch. They're starting from zero and trying to become the world's largest battery maker. So I think that's going to be their biggest challenge. And, you know, these tweets seem to suggest that things are maybe moving a bit slow. So it's an area where they're going to have to prove themselves. And, you know, the 4680 battery that they unveiled at Battery Day, it sounds fantastic, but it's not technically proven yet. We've got to see that in the wild and have it in vehicles before we know it's real.
Well, he did clarify later on that it'll just be this year that it's constricted. Next year, it should be much less onerous as far as the limitation. They are talking about 5 semis a week in sort of a limited trial run production. I don't know. And that would be in California, wouldn't it? It wouldn't even be in Nevada. Or
I thought it was Nevada, but I'm not sure.
Or maybe it's Nevada and they're going to make them in Texas. Now I'm confused. Help me out here. You're not helping me out.
Maybe Alexa knows. I don't know.
Okay. Well, I'm certainly, they're past due. They were due when? 2 years ago? Something like that?
Yeah, their timelines have not been great. I mean, they promised the full self-driving at least several years ago. So, yeah, I mean, it's a massive problem to solve. This is a big manufacturing thing. So it's not too surprising that it's a bit late.
Well, guess what, Mr. Stockton? Tokyo has a facility that converts sewage into clean hydrogen. Your poop, your pee, your whatnots into hydrogen. I don't know what the whatnots are. Never mind. A new facility in Tokyo that is converting sewage into renewable hydrogen has been completed. Don't ask me how they do it, but I guess that's good. Yay.
I guess so. I mean, we have an endless supply of sewage, so if something can be done with it, that'd be great.
Maybe I could just hook a little device up to my sewer line, and every time I flush, it makes electricity. How about that? Maybe we'll get to that someday. So Tesla has drastically increased the price of its solar roof. Do you know what's behind that? Any ideas? Any thoughts?
No, I think that was definitely a bad news story for Tesla. They've been trying to kind of drive down the cost, really, of all of their products. They're trying to make everything cheaper so that they can sell more of them and be more ubiquitous and to drive the whole transition. So for them to, you know, put a very significant price increase on the solar roof was definitely disappointing and definitely a bad news story for Tesla. That likely means that they just have not been able to drive down the costs like they were hoping to. And yeah, it's too bad. It seems to me to put the solar roof maybe kind of out of range of a lot more people. It's too bad.
You don't think it's a demand supply situation?
I mean, I know that they put up the price of the Powerwall because, you know, they're supply constrained. They can't make enough of them. So, yeah, I mean, maybe they can't make enough of the solar roof, so they decided to crank the price up, but they cranked it up so much. It seems like probably something else is going on there.
Mercedes-Benz all-electric EQS is an upcoming EV from Mercedes-Benz that you and I won't be able to afford. Well, you could potentially buy the moon the way things are going with Tesla stock. The interior was unveiled with a massive 55-inch screen, and I'm wondering, is my TV even that big? 55 inches, man.
Yes, and I would say technically it's not really that wide. It's actually 3 displays that are kind of joined together, so that's a bit of a cheat. It's not really that big.
But everywhere you look forward, there's going to be screen.
Yeah, no, it's kind of cool looking, although I think that's an option. Like you can option a version with fewer screens that cost you less money, but it's a cool look. I like it.
What are you looking at on those screens?
Well, that I don't know.
I'd like to know. You got to look at the road. You can't look at your screens. I don't understand. How big a screen do you need? People, there's some pushback. Some people really hate those big screens, and they're saying cars don't need them. More major U.S. e-bike companies are hiking prices under a cost squeeze. There is too many part shortages for e-bikes and too much demand. They're talking about bike shops being short of supply for 2 more years. I mean, if the pandemic completely ended today, That's how long it would take. It's crazy. It's great for bike shops.
Wow, that's quite surprising, but that's another reason I was really glad to get my e-bike when I did, because, I was hoping to get something here right at the start of spring and summer because, I feel like there are going to continue to be supply problems.
Yeah, and my e-bike hasn't gone down to the price that I paid for it exactly a year ago. So NIO has temporarily suspended production due to semiconductor shortage. Brian, are they going into vaccines, these semiconductors? Is it a Bill Gates thing that he's putting them all into vaccines? They must be small.
Yes, I can say that with full confidence.
Okay. So an underage teen gets in a Tesla's back seat and claims it was self-driving. The car was self-driving after being pulled over by police. So he was driving the car and wasn't old enough to have a license and jumped into the back seat and claimed the car was driving him. Your thoughts?
I think that's really funny, and I like that kid a lot.
Kids are the future, Brian. They're the future. I wonder what police thought. I'd like to read the report. So there's now 1,000 operational superchargers in the United States. And, about 11,000 or 1,100 if you go to Canada and Mexico. Most of them are in Canada. So, we've reached sort of a milestone there with 1,000 supercharger stations in the United States. Superchargers, pardon me.
There was rumors going around last week about Tesla maybe releasing an adapter so that people with non-Tesla cars could charge at the network. But I don't particularly like to talk about rumors because nothing has been confirmed. But, that was really interesting to me, and hopefully there's some movement on that.
It could cause an interesting glut, though, of superchargers if they're not careful. But then I'm thinking maybe the app just doesn't take you there if there's not like 30% free or something.
Yeah, they definitely have issues in California of the stations being too full. So we'll see.
So Tesla has received approval to move forward with its trade secret lawsuit against Rivian. That is a lawsuit that came out of some people who worked for Tesla leaving, going to Rivian, and allegedly taking some of the trade secrets of Tesla with them. What do you think about that? I'm kind of discouraged by that. I was hoping Rivian and Tesla would get along and everybody would be happy and we would move forward with the decarbonization of transportation together and Shangri-La and all that.
Yeah, and Rivian has so far seemed like a cool company, so it'd be sad to think if they were, in fact, stealing secrets. So, let's hope they weren't.
On the other hand, Brian, Elon has said that he would, he's not patenting things. He's not putting patents on things because he wants to share the technology to get other car companies. He knows that Tesla can't do it by itself, to get other car companies moving forward too. So it's kind of against the whole.
Yeah, and they have said, that they're sort of open sourcing their technology, and it sounds like that has been somewhat true. And I think in some cases it's not so much that they are open sourcing everything, but it's kind of like, we promise not to sue you. It's something like that. But that appears to not be the case with whatever's happening with Rivian.
Well, Tesla's on-screen gear selector, that is a non-physical gear selector, gear shifter, if you will, if you want to call it that, is just a touch thing on their screen, and it's been allowed by the National Highway Transportation Safety Association, I believe it's association, NHTSA. So that's going ahead. That's the one where it predicts in some of the new Teslas which way you're going to go, and if not, then you have to use the touchscreen.
Yeah, no, I like that because it looks like it's on like the left side of the screen. So that's real close to the driver, and you just swipe forward if you want to go forward. You swipe backwards if you want to go backwards. Neutral is a different setting in another kind of menu, but I've never needed to go into neutral in my Tesla, so I don't think that's an issue. But yeah, I wish I had that on my car. The Model 3, you use the stock to, down for drive, up for reverse. It's never seemed particularly elegant.
You'd rather use a touchscreen. That surprises me. I'm sitting here surprised.
I think that would be
Really?
better, yeah.
Interesting.
Yeah.
Well, the American Petroleum Institute has embraced the carbon tax on the same day that the Canadian Supreme Court approved it. And yeah, but I've seen some people call BS on that, and they said it's because it would be conditional on the rollback of regulations. And that's not going to happen. It's going to increase pollution if that happens. And it's easy to give in on climate change on something like this because they know Republicans are not going to go for it. So people are saying it's just greenwashing. It's just a hogwash announcement that they're for a carbon tax. Israel's first Tesla supercharger is now open in Tel Aviv. So yeah, Israel, Tesla.
Yeah, and they've got lots of vaccinations there, too. They're well over 50% now, I think.
Get your vaccinated body into your Tesla and go supercharge. Finally this week, the Tesla stock could surprise with strong deliveries in Q1 despite production constraints. What do you think, Brian? Is Tesla going to surprise?
Yeah. This is a big question because there were, shortages of semiconductors, and they also shut down their production line for the Model S and the Model X because they were refreshing those, so they weren't making any cars for a long time. So if they were to still kind of beat, numbers in spite of that, it would be a very good news story for them for sure. But, they could easily also miss as well. I don't have a firm feeling on which way it's going to go.
Brian, it's been another spectacular show. Thank you, everyone, for listening. We do appreciate it. Remember to get a hold of us, cleanenergyshow@gmail.com, or on Twitter, Clean Energy Pod. We always like to hear from you. Tell your friends. Write your Apple reviews for us on iTunes. We appreciate that. And we'll be reading some more of those in the coming weeks. And we'd like to hear from you anytime you have anything to say. We'll be back next Wednesday with another edition of the show.
Yeah, see you next week.